society are being destroyed, you know, week by week, day by day. It's absolutely horrendous. And who are going to suffer the worst at the end of it all? The next generation. Because what's going to be their future when everything has been eroded that we built up over decades and centuries? It's all eroded in a few weeks and months. Just by one silly little virus. I'm sorry, I'm not very respectful to COVID-19. I know we should all be in great awe and you know, bowing to this virus. I don't know what he was doing. Maybe he was bowing bowing to somebody else. But anyway, we should be bowing to COVID-19 because it is the big presence in our midst, isn't it, that's making us all do these extraordinarily unnatural things, withholding from hugging people, telling our children they can't hug people, getting everybody to stand apart from each other. You know, I mean, what's happened to the public? Where's our collective common sense gone? We're supposed to be the country of common sense. Where's our common sense? You know, we only need a bit of information, a few facts, and you know, this whole thing will crumble in each of our minds straight away. You know, there's too many inconsistencies and anomalies and things that don't square up, and then frightening new information coming from people who've actually been through some part of the process of being engaged with this virus that we're all supposed to be bowing down towards, egged on by the leaders, and who tell us really quite disturbing and extraordinarily worrying and very incriminating information about what's actually going on the ground in the interactions between our medical personnel, our great NHS, and the virus, and sufferers from the virus, and what's happening to people, and that they're dying when they could be saved by quite simple, not exactly natural, but well known over many decades, in fact centuries, quinine, the natural element quinine that's in so many treatments for the oriental diseases that afflicted the colonials in the last 200, 300 years when they went abroad. Quinine, malaria, you know, that's the treatment for basic things that we've known about for decades and centuries have been swept, gone down the river.
So there are treatments?
Yes,
there are treatments?
yes, and now the latest news is that there's going to be 6 new strains of this virus come the autumn. This is the great surge that's coming. It's coming 6-fold. Now how can they predict not just 1 or 2 or 3 but 6 new strains? Yes, he's not got time. He won't have time. He's very busy on business or whatever. He's jolly good. Well done, Gazer. Right. You have to actually. I mean, yesterday I was in Nottingham and I had 5 very, very uppish and with attitude teenagers trying to tell me that what I was going to speak about and the other speakers at Nottingham was all complete rubbish. These are 14 and 15-year-old children. I think might even have been 13. They weren't very big, up to about here on me. They had very interesting haircuts and, you know, face decorations. They didn't exactly quite have had tattoos, but they were quite, you know, they had attitude. That's all I can say. And they knew best about everything. So I said, well, look, you seem to be very cool and very, you know, quite canny. I don't know if you know the name canny. I said, but quite cool people. You should come and engage with us and tell us what you think about what's going on and what we should do. Let's hear from you. Oh no, but they couldn't do that because they didn't want to mingle with us, you know. And they pointed vaguely at the Black Lives Matter banner that was above the municipal building that we were standing in front of. I think it was a municipal building. It seemed to be an official building. And that was the thing that they were on about at the moment. And anything that wasn't Black Lives Matter, you know, this was the campaign this summer, nothing else was to be heard. So then I said, well, okay, let's just sort of see whether we can find something that we have in common between us. And then one of them said, and what do you think of inequality? So I said, well, it's the thing I'm fighting against the whole time. Inequality is really the worst thing, isn't it? We all believe in equality, and so they were a little bit flawed by that because they thought that because I was doing another campaign I believed in inequality and I was for, you know, white supremacy. Okay, you've asked me a question, I'm going to ask you a question. Do you know anything about the New World Order? Have you heard of Agenda 21? Agenda 2030? It's going to happen in your immediate lifetime, isn't it? Oh, well, you're always making everybody the world, we go to school, we train for a job, or we have a career, and then we have a family, and then one day we'll die. So we're all going to die. So what's the use of doing anything? It's just 13, 14, 15-year-old children. I couldn't believe it. Well, I said, well, I'm really, sad that you think so little of life. But maybe you'll change your mind. I just hope maybe you'll look up the New World Order. Maybe you'll start to change your mind. And I left them there. And, because we had people to speak to and, stuff to say. So, but that was a very disturbing thing. And I thought, and they were quite sort of, one of them threw a bottle of water over one of the speakers. Came up behind her and tipped a bottle of water. It was nice, clean, pure water, but, it was still it was a sort of aggressive thing to do, wasn't it? From a young person to an older lady. So that's our youth, and they did look quite, I thought, I don't know what families they come from, but, they looked a bit like Satan's children. That's what I thought to myself. They were not nice children. They weren't in the end. And they all clung together. So we have to think about the children and what effect all of this is going to have on the children. And we have to get everybody who's a little bit half asleep to realise that there is an agenda. It is called the New World Order Agenda. It does have sort of sub-branches about things happening now, Agenda 21 and 2030. But the New World Order Agenda was planned by senior Freemasons in the 18th century, and it was rolled out from 1776, the same year as the Declaration of Independence and the beginning of America, and it's got 260 years to run. So that takes us to 2036. So you can see why there's this hurry about Agenda 21 and 2030, right? Because it's all got to be pegged in place, because the Freemasons are very methodical. They like to do everything in a very planned and organised and long thought out way, and then they don't shift from it, and everybody follows the same rule. So you can usually predict what's going to happen by some of their more subtle public communications, and symbology and numerology come into that. So we can be sure that this 260-year agenda does have to finish in some shape or form. And one of the ingredients of the agenda, as everybody knows, is population reduction. And that's really where we're at this year. They actually behind schedule, because I read things in the 90s where they were saying they were going to reduce the population by 4/5 by 2019, which I believe, with my memory serves me, is last year. So where are we now this year? Well, the coronavirus hasn't actually helped very much so far, but the 6 new strains might do it, right? And this is what we have to gear up for, the 6 new strains, each one of them with a new basket of symptoms. Forget your dry cough, forget your fever, forget your anosmia, which is not being able to smell properly, nose, forget those ones, and the shortness of breath. We're now going to have diarrhea, fatigue, depression, headaches. We're going to have a whole nausea. We're going to have a whole lot of symptoms from these 6 new strains of the virus. And the really worrying thing is they're going to affect a wider age range, and that's really where we come in with the children's campaign and the children's rights. Because so far they've let us in gently, the children have got off scot-free, and the poor elderly people have suffered the most. But it's not going to be like that for very much longer. We have to get out now, we have to join together now. We need a national movement to stand up for the children and for the future. I'm sorry it has to be me. If anybody can do it better than me, please, but luckily it's done by all of us. It's not me.